This is what we're all wearing in the UK. This is the latest fashion this year, by the way. Right, let's get to it. Voila, here is our fuel tanks. That's one. And you can see I've already taken the plate off, the inspection plate. That's the tank on the other side. You can see the inspection tank the inspection hatch quite clearly. So I've literally just got this off. It came off pretty easily. You're going to be the first people to look inside. So I've just grabbed the camera. I have no idea what it's going to be like in there. You're going to need some light. Ooh, there you go. I don't know whether you'll be able to see much actually. Let's just get that light in there. All right, tell me, what can you see? Much? Anything? I'm assuming that the dirtiest part of the tank will be down in this bottom corner. So this is where I'm expecting to find most of the rubbish. Down there. What does it look like? See anything? I can see that the surface, I haven't tried scraping that surface yet, but that surface looks to me as if there's a sort of a thick film of slurry on it. I could be wrong. I'll find out in a minute. In fact, while you're here, let's have a quick go. I've got a little scraper here. Put that torch on there. Let's have a look. Oh yes. Oh, look at that. My goodness me, look at that. Can you see that? Oh. Well, it's going to be very satisfying to get that off, I have to say. But my goodness me, what a coating of slime. And that's on the sides at the steepest part. So, yeah, actually, just thinking out, whilst that was fun, damn, that's all over. That means I have to get in there and scrape every bloody surface. That means probably the inspection hatch at the back, which probably means that one's got to come off unless I get a long handle in there. I'm going to have to find a long handle. I don't really want to take all that out there. Damn. Okay. Well, it comes off easy. That's the good thing. It's not going to be difficult to get it off, but it does mean I'm going to have to get in there with some long handle scrapers and things and do quite a lot of washing down. This is going to be dirty. This is going to be very dirty. Okay. Well, you've seen the good bits. I don't think you want to see the rest, actually. I know I don't. But anyway, that's I just thought you'd like to know what we're up to. Catch it while I'm hot in the middle of doing the job. I literally have just taken that off. You've actually seen more than I have so far. I'm about to stick my head in there, get rid of this so that I can get to it. And when that's finished, I'll do the other side. Obviously, I've emptied both tanks of fuel quite clearly. Go. So I can now get to this, take that off and have a look inside. That'll be interesting. I'm sure it's going to be just as filthy, if not worse, than the other side. Oh, you little devil. Right. Hey, voila. There you go. It's just a bit of paint, I think. It's just slapped paint on and slapped it together, I think. It's worked anyway over the years, so. What's it like inside? Oh, God. Oh, my God. And that is thick. Ah! No. Stick my head in there. You can see the build up there. It's probably comparable with the other side. You can see rust at the top corner there, look. It's only a bit of surface rust where the fuel never really gets to. And pretty thick down here. You know, I don't even have to scrape that away for you to see that thick layer, and that'll be even thicker down below. So there you go. Ow! Ow, 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 everything's so stiff down here. Ow! I'm going to go and have some lunch and prepare myself for the shitty job that's going to take me all of today and a bit of tomorrow probably. Catch you in a bit. So I'm just scraping gently off the surface. That's just a very gentle scrape of the surface, not out of the bottom of the tank, that's the side of the tank, the sloping side, and that's what it looks like. There we go. That's the side of the tank. There's a lot more of that where that came from. So I'm going to be busy today and for the rest of today clearing out this rubbish. Horrible muck. Look at it. Yuck. I need my marigolds really. These are not up to this job. Good morning everybody, it's Sunday morning, it's the 24th of September and I'm back in the engine room. I've been doing various bits and pieces, but mainly for the last week I've been concentrating on that job that you will already have seen, which was cleaning out our two fuel tanks. Finally, I'm finished with it. I'm just closing everything up now. So you can see on the starboard side, it's open at the moment, but all cleaned up, and I'll show you inside there in a minute. That's the plate that goes on, you know, that closes it, the inspection hatch plate. And Jamie's cut me, because it didn't have a gasket on it before, he's cut me this nice thick, what was that, 3/8 quarter of an inch rubber gasket, which will seal that. I've done this side, you can see that's all bolted up now. Not a place where any old man should be really, a boat engine room. And that's the very thing you don't want to be doing, is dropping things down the bill. Flipping marvellous. So first of all, oh God, I can't even reach that, that's so far away. Damn it to blazes. Okay, well, I'm going down into the bilge in a minute. Anyway, the inside of the tank, nice and clean, but there are little bits of fibres and things. I don't know how much you can see in there. You should be able to see forward. That's looking to the back of the tank. And if I turn the torch around, you will see to the front of the tank down here. All lovely and clean, look. All nice and pristine and clean in there. So this morning's just going to poke through that hole, get that done. It shouldn't take more than an hour to get this whole thing wrapped up, and then including putting this back on there and bolting it up. Let's hope so. Slightly late, of course, because now I've got to poke around in the bilge to get my socket spanner back. Catch you in a minute. job done. And a very frustrating one this morning. I'm glad to get that finished actually, because that really has been frustrating. You have days like that, don't you? Well, I've got another job I've got to do over in the barge. I'll take you over there later on, but I need some lunch. I need some energy. Catch you in a bit. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a very blustery 14th of November afternoon here in Gloucester Docks. There's also quite a lot of activity and noise going on around us at the moment because the annual dredging is taking place. It's about 4 months of dredging every winter, basically to dredge the mud out that the Canal and River Trust pump in during the course of the rest of the year. They pump in mud from the River Severn. It's a long story, which I won't bore you with, but here's a little bit of footage actually of what happened a couple of weeks ago when we were dug out of the mud here so that the dredger could get in to dredge alongside the quayside here for Leader to get in, another of Tommy Nielsen's customers this year, Brixham trawler Leader, which is in for her winter maintenance. Actually, it might be a bit more than the winter maintenance, I don't know. I appreciate, of course, that this video is very late, but actually for a change my excuse isn't overwork. If anything, it's the opposite. About a month ago I realised that I was waking up in the morning for the first time since, well, probably the first time since beginning of this project, not actually stressing about the amount of work that was going to be uncovered or exposed during the course of the day because of our other work. We've reached a stage in the project where we're sort of wrapping things up for the first time, and a sort of blissful calm has descended upon me. Our to-do list is actually getting shorter rather than longer, and I'm actually hardly feeling any guilt at all at moments of inactivity. So that's what's been going on. Anyway, the novelty's worn off and we're back to full-time work again, because I mean we have been working hard, and our goal really is to get this project finished, get Josefine finished by the end of the year. And we've been concentrating on all of the jobs needed to make her seaworthy. We're not worrying about little jobs. And this video is about 3 of those projects which we've been able to tick off. The first one that you've just seen was doing our fuel tanks, and what a mess they were in. Well, you've seen it. That was a big surprise. I mean, I knew that they were probably dirty, even though we've been using the fuel tanks, you know, for years. For the last 7 years, we've been using them for heating, and we've been using them for running the engine from time to time, you know, during, you know, when the boat needed to be moved or manoeuvred around. So you know, you wonder how that could happen with that amount of sludge in there. But the truth is, I mean, that's very sticky stuff, and it's sort of stuck to all the sides of the tanks, and the fuel has been running cleanly, well, relatively cleanly, between it all, you know, through a channel. So the engine was running, things weren't getting gummed up, but what we knew, and we knew they were dirty, or probably dirty, what we knew is that the moment we went out into the lumpy water, you know, when we went out to sea and things started getting chucked around in there, that probably, you know, whatever dirt was in there was going to get churned up, and that's when we would have had the problems. That's when we would have had the engine failures, and it would have been at the most critical time. So it was really, really important to get those fuel tanks cleaned out. So it was a big relief to get that ticked off, and job done. The second major project was completing the shipping of Josefine's tender, Lily. You've seen most of that in the last episode, but we just had the final bits, which was the cradle to hold everything in position on the boat. So that's the second part of this video, and I'll catch you in a minute and show you how we completed all that. So catch you in a bit. like this. So 2 inches from the end of there. I want to keep a little bit of symmetry with the one that I've already produced. And the angle I need to make this, if I'm going to keep symmetry, is that angle there. Match what's on the other one. It sort of curves a little bit like this before starting down again. Got all my main points, which is the far point there, this corner here, the top corner there, which actually I'm just going to put crudely in place, because when finding wood it will matter. I don't, you know, if for instance there was a bit of a split in the wood which could be missed by just curving this round, then it's worth knowing that that is going to be shaped more or less like that. The template's looking good, so that's that templated up. There's only 2 points where it touches, which is on the rubbing strakes, so it's relatively straightforward. Here you see the finished item, the one I did yesterday, so to speak. Actually I did it the day before yesterday. It's had a couple of coats of varnish just to protect it from the rain that's coming. So you see there's 2 points on which it touches. It doesn't touch here. That's more of a guide, so that when we're lifting the dinghy on, it slips down this surface and then just locates in those 2 points. Nice big base to spread the load, because this is plywood. It's not, you know, it's not particularly strong. So having a bigger foot helps, and also it's bolted into beams down below, on at least 2 points anyway, on 2 corners, not on this side. But so there you go, there you have it. Looking quite good, quite pleased with that, quite happy with that. So now I go and find a piece of wood that fits into, and that shouldn't be too difficult.
Still warm, so it's going to be better for,
yeah, no direct sunlight.
Painting.
Yep. Good. So here's the finished product. Here are the cradles inboard, if you like, on top of our coach house. The one that I showed you in the video just now was that one there. So that's all installed now. You can see it's just a little bit of mastic around the bottom that's got to be cleaned away. This has all got to be repainted, the top of here. And you can see I've put an eye bolt through there and an eye bolt on this one. That's for straps which we can lead, ratchet straps which we are going to put over the dinghy. It'll actually go underneath the cover to hold it on when we're actually sailing. And then we've got these lovely cradles down here that I made. Same principle as the ones inboard, different shape of course, but all done the same way. Sort of templated the shape and then bolted it all in position. Everything's been lined up with the stronger structural part of the boat, so these are in line with beams that run through the coach house, and again the eye bolts at the bottom. This worked really well, we're very pleased with that actually, and it looks quite elegant, doesn't it? I'll give you a view of it from the stern here. I'll show you from the front. So there you go. Both very effective and very elegant at the same time. So the whole system working really, really nicely. The boat is as sturdy as anything. It doesn't move at all. so that's really lovely. And with the straps on, it'll never move. And the other part of this project, the final part of the project, was what to do with the derrick. This is the derrick, lifting derrick, which I've shown you in action. And normally these sorts of things are found a home actually on the deck of the boat, and that could be a bit of a nuisance, especially on a boat like Josefine, which is quite small. So I came up with this idea. Now normally the boat had originally these nice wrought iron stanchions on top of our original wooden stanchions. These are screwed in here, look, taken down through holes in the capping rail and then screwed in to the original wooden stanchions, and they were put there. Originally they had a little tab welded across the top of them. They were about this high, and then there was a teak rail between them all the way around the boat, but the teak rail had long ago, it had all become twisted, split, damaged. You know, it was in a bit of a mess, to be honest with you, and the different sections weren't really working very well as far as operating the boat. Some of them were in the wrong place. So what we did originally, and the original plan, which we're still going to do half of it, is we restored these, and I'll show you some footage. I'll dive into some of the earlier episodes and show you what we did there. We basically cut those little flat tabs off, got rid of the teak rails on top, which I made some cabinet doors out of, actually recycled it, and then we had some rings welded into the top of the stanchions so that we could put a rope in. So this is another one. As we come towards the end of this project, that's sort of one of those other projects that's been, you know, partially done over the course of the year, and we're finally getting around to completing it now. Anyway, as far as the derrick is concerned, I realised, of course, that we couldn't put those permanent metal stanchions all the way along the capping rail as they were originally, because then we wouldn't be able to swing Lily in through that gap. So we've cut the tops of them off, and Jamie has welded this sort of little U-bracket on top, which I'm going to leather. These have got to be sent away to be galvanised, by the way. They're not finished yet, and we think that works really well. So it's a safety rail, and it's a place to park the derrick, so quite pleased with that. The second of the three major projects that we've completed in the last few weeks, and that brings me to the final one, which is the steering system, and that in a way has been the sort of longest saga, if you like. You'll recall that originally when we bought the boat, it had a manual steering system which had a number of major design problems as far as maintaining the boat is concerned, and was a leading factor in a lot of the damage that we found, a lot of the wood rot we found in the deck. And what I've done is, because we replaced the steering with a hydraulic system, but because of the way the boat had to be restored, replacing the steering obviously had to keep pace with the pace of restoring the boat. We couldn't just install a completely new system, because we were pulling up the very deck that the steering system was attached to. So because of that, it's taken 3 years to complete that project. So what I've done is I've gone back into previous episodes, and I've copied out the bits of those that covered the steering project and put it all together so you can see it in one go. It's the only way to really understand this. So that's coming up now, and that will bring us up to where we were about 6 weeks ago, when we finally got the moment to finish off that project, which we have now done. So that's the third major project that we've completed in the course of the last 2 months. So I'll catch you in a bit and show you exactly what we've done to finish it. Okay, so I think the simplest way to deal with the steering system is for me to draw you a diagram, literally. So let's have a look at the original manual system. If we take that to represent the stern of the boat, and we'll put the wheelhouse in, and I'm going to foreshorten this for the sake of scale, otherwise I'll run out of paper. So that's the back of the wheelhouse, and then we'll put the front of the wheelhouse in here. So, and we have a locker, which is important to this, on the front of the wheelhouse, and rudder stock somewhere around about there. That's your starting point. Now, the manual system consisted of a quadrant, a steering quadrant, an arm attached to a block which clamped it around the rudder stock. And so you can imagine, now that's a little bit like a tiller arm. If you move that from side to side, naturally you move the rudder from side to side. Now the way the manual system worked was this. Where shall I start? Let's start in the wheelhouse, I think. So in the wheelhouse there was, front of the wheelhouse here, so here you had a drum, a large drum, on a frame, mounted on a frame, and through which a shaft ran right the way through, out through the front of the wheelhouse and through and inside the locker. And on this there was a wheel inside and out. So you've got two wheels, one inside and one outside. Now the way this worked was that the around the centre of this, there was or just below or the drum, there was a gear, a large gear, represented like so, on this shaft, and that wound the drum. And steel cables entering in through sheaves on either side. So you had steel cables that ran into that from either side. One wound, the steel cable went through the sheave, up through another sheave, and then was wound onto the drum. And the steel cable from the other side went through a sheave, up through another sheave, and then was wound on from the other side, so that the two cables intermingled but going from different directions, so that when you turned the wheel you would either pull this cable in, or if you turned it the other way you would pull this cable in. These cables then went round large brass sheaves on the deck, which were sort of half in and half out of the locker cum wheelhouse. So the cable went around those like so, and then it ran all the way along the deck. We'll come back to that in a second. So for here, to channel those, there was large brass sheaves mounted on big metal plates, one here and one here, and then there were guiding sheaves, so the cable would come along here and there was a sort of guiding sheave like so, also on large metal plates, bigger plates than these. This isn't necessary to scale, by the way, it's just to give you an idea. So there was a sheave there, a sheave there. So now the steel cable ran along the deck, through the guide sheave, around the brass sheave, and around the outer side of the quadrant, and then was fixed in position there. It was channeled through a guide here, and similarly on this side the other cable went all the way around through a guide here, was fixed there, round this sheave, through that guide, and all the way back through the other sheave here. Let's just mark those in so they're more obvious. So through that sheave and back into the wheelhouse. So now So now you can see by turning the wheel, turning this drum, basically winding on that steel cable. Now, the problem with this system was, and of course the straight-through shaft meant that you could do the same on the outside. One last thing I should say was there was, and still is, although in a different position, a large electric motor which had a gear here, a chain fixed to another gear on the actual drive shaft, so that when that electric motor was activated, the chain linking it to a gear on the drive shaft would turn the drive shaft, and that's your autopilot. So, and that still exists. So those are the component parts. Now the problem with this is all this deck stuff. So for a start, you can see if I draw a line straight across the deck there, this entire area was unusable. You couldn't walk on there because of all the clutter and all the mechanics going on. It was a dangerous place to be. So previous owners had made like a lounger, if you like, slats across the whole thing, about 1 foot off the ground, to protect people from the steering system and the steering system from people. But that meant you couldn't really use that stage, other than the odd occasion when you wanted to lie down on a lounger, which wasn't an awful lot of use. And all this metal plate work, and it wasn't just the sheaves, they were mounted on much larger bits of metal, which you'll see in the photographs, meant that you couldn't get to the deck below all of this to maintain the deck. And of course the quadrant itself also shielded the deck from maintenance. The worst ones in particular were these two sheaves here, which allowed water to get in through the deck and into the deck beams below and created a lot of rot. The other thing was that you couldn't have the steel cable loose on the deck like this, particularly as it crossed from the back of the wheelhouse to the steering system, because this is a walkway through here. You know, you need to be able to walk round the wheelhouse. So that was actually captivated in metal tubes, steel metal tubes that ran all the way down either side of the wheelhouse, like that, so that the cable could run inside them, so that when you walk round here, yeah, you tripped over the metal pipe, but you didn't snag the actual cable itself. So it was a flipping nuisance. And these, in particular, these steel pipes, which guided the steel cable, also created a trapped area for water here, and they completely destroyed the huge carling which the whole wheelhouse was sitting on, and we had to have it replaced. So, it almost entailed lifting the wheelhouse off. We actually managed to be able to do it by digging underneath, taking the old one out and putting it in. Tommy Nielsen's did that when we first bought the boat. So the whole carling had rotted away, and the whole of the deck was rotted. And you'll see that in the photographs and films which will accompany this diagram. So it caused a huge amount of trouble in terms of maintenance of the deck, rot of the deck, inconvenience to actually use the boat itself. And the system itself was flawed in that there were so many friction. Every single one of these points is a point of friction. The cable running around the quadrant itself is friction around the sheaves, 4 here, guide sheaves, and the horizontal sheaves here, friction through the pipe and along the deck, through more sheaves, through sheaves in the wheelhouse, huge amount of friction on the big drum in the centre, and the friction through all of these points meant that there were lots of chafing areas. And in fact, when we first bought the boat, I can't remember where it was. I think it was up here at this corner here. The cable was on a single thread holding it. I mean, it was about to break. So lots and lots and lots wrong with this system. So let's have a look and see. I'll show you what we did to replace all of that. So let's we'll start again. Okay, so that's our starting point. We stripped out everything. We took away the quadrant, we took away all the sheaves, all the cabling, we took out the drum. The only thing that we left in was the electric motor, which we repositioned, and I'll show you that in a second. So what we did is we replaced all of that with... Ironically, after searching Britain and half of Europe for a second-hand hydraulic steering system, we actually found one at a boatyard on the Gloucester and Sharpness Canal, just 8 miles away from us. It was part of a fishing boat that the boatyard was scrapping. The deal was that we had to disassemble the system ourselves. So Rennie and I got our bikes and our trusty trailer out, had a lovely cycle down the Gloucester and Sharpness Canal, and spent the afternoon hacking and cutting at the hydraulic system, which kindly the boatyard delivered to us later that week. It proved to be an absolute perfect fit for Josefine. With a single box, there's a big metal box which you will have seen in the accompanying photos and videos, which had inside it, first of all, a tiller bar which clamped nicely around the rudder stock, and then connected to that 2 huge rams, hydraulic rams, and the hoses from which dropped down through the deck and ran inside the boat through the engine room and came up here in the wheelhouse. So nothing on deck except for this box. The box had to be installed at a particular angle to match the angle of our rudder stock. So yes, the deck was left completely clear. None of the problems that we had with the manual system. Literally just this little box here with the 2 rams in, which when you turn the wheel drove a pump and pumped oil through these hydraulic rams. Now, as far as the link up for the auto helm was concerned, what we had was our pedestal with a small shaft sticking out the front, onto which we have a wheel. Now, our pedestal encloses the pump, so that when you turn this wheel, it turns a pump inside the pedestal, which drives the oil through the 2 hydraulic hoses, which then activate the rams. We couldn't put a shaft straight through the centre because this is solid and the pump is in there. So what we had to do was create a bypass system. So I designed a system where we had a gear to the side of the pedestal, a gear on the back of the wheel, and a shaft that ran alongside the pedestal and out through the locker to our other wheel, which is slightly offset. So it's not in line with the one inside, doesn't make any difference. And we linked that with chain, so now when you turn the wheel on the inside, the wheel on the outside moves at the same amount. We moved the electric motor. It does exactly the same thing as it did before. We moved it so that it was in a better position, used better use of the space, and that again is still driven by a gear on the side of the motor to another gear which is on the shaft. And the way that these communicate with each other is the way that the auto helm drives this system is we put a mounting plate across the box, and the arm, the activator arm for the auto helm was mounted on that, and then a rod attaches to one arm of the tiller. So when the tiller rotates, the activation arm rotates or moves at the same amount, which sends a signal via some electrical cables to the computer that runs the auto helm. So a lot cleaner system, as you can see. No deck furniture, no friction. We now have almost complete and full use of the stern deck, and yeah, that worked absolutely brilliantly. So one last thing, if I just show you how the actual autohelm works. So the components of the autohelm is there's a computer. I think that's all the component parts. That feeds back to the computer. So the information from this feeds into the computer, and from the flux gate into the computer, and from the GPS into the computer. So the computer receives information, and also from the control, and that also sends information back to the control box. So there's two-way from there, and the electric motor, the computer also feeds into the electric motor. So information from the tiller, from the flux gate compass, from the GPS feeds into the computer to tell the computer what the boat is doing, what its current heading is, for instance. Also information from the GPS, which will give it other information about the speed it's travelling and its true heading. The tiller sensor will tell it if the boat is moving to port or to starboard, and it gathers that information, and depending on what you want to do, you input from the control box to the computer, and the computer sends a signal to the electric motor, and that starts turning. And the computer gets feedback from the tiller sensor, so it will be able to tell what's happening there, and it will also be able to tell what the result is by information from the fluxgate the fluxgate compass, or the GPS. So either of those or both of those. Now there are other inputs that you can put in. You can put, for instance, weather vane information in. And if you put weather vane information, it means you can steer a course relative to the apparent wind. So that's quite useful, but we don't have that information, and we're not going to use the system in that way. We're going to use it in a very simple way, which is so that we can be hands-off from time to time. Once we're on a particular course, we're just going to go into auto, and the boat will just keep on going in a straight line. You can change the sensitivity of this system, and that's something that we've got to do when we do our sea trials. So there you have it. If I press this button here, it'll do a 10-degree turn to starboard. So press that, and then you see it go. There you go. And if I do it back the other way, complete. After all these years, all of the component parts finally come together, and the whole system working really well. So yes, I hope you enjoy the video. One last thing, a little bit of a request actually. The other major job that we have to do, and is very much a part of its seaworthiness, we've got to get it done before obviously we leave here, and that is ballast. I took a lot of ballast out. If you look back at, I can't remember which episode it is, you know, right back in the early days when I was fitting out inside, I took out a lot of very, very loose ballast, about a ton. So we've got to put back a ton of ballast, and we're really looking for lead. So if anybody knows of somewhere in the UK where I can get a really good supply, I need a ton basically of lead, clean lead bricks preferably, to replace and do. So if anybody knows of anywhere, let me know. And the other thing is a life raft. We can't afford a new one, and renting them is extraordinarily expensive. So if anybody knows of a good second-hand one going, again, please contact us. Other than that, have a nice weekend, and we'll catch you soon.